Good evening, everybody. Lovely to see you all. For those I haven't seen recently, it's really nice to see all of you. Welcome, Geraldine. It's been a long time. Really, really lovely to see you. I'm just letting everybody in to say a big good evening, and then I'm going to introduce Mark. As I said, just letting everyone in. Laura, nice to see you. Megan, Sonia, Lisa, hello. Welcome, everybody. It's just on 7 o'clock, so I'm going to do my introductions and welcome everybody, and a warm welcome to those of you. Oh, there are a few more people coming in. My name is Cindy Holmes. For those of you who don't know me, a warm welcome tonight. We have Mark Bind as our guest speaker this evening. Mark is an energy healer. He is a Reiki master. He has done NLP and many other things. He specializes really in working with some of the darker force entities that we deal with in healing, not from a place of fear, but it's one of those things that Mark has specialized in and runs a thriving online international practice, as well as you can see him in person if you live in Cape Town. So, yeah, welcome everybody. Tonight we're going to be talking about a subject which is really close to, I think, a lot of people who I see on the call's heart, and it's called Moving Beyond Protection, the pathway to sovereignty. It's understanding how energetic protection works and why it does it. We're going to learn the internal and external magnets of negative energy, understand how negative energy attaches to the body, discover a game-changing map of the non-physical reality, and learn how to help you avoid negative entities, and then learn 3 powerful protection tools and 4 tips for enhancing the power of protection. So that is an exciting topic for all of us, and what I am excited to do is invite Mark to turn on his camera, say hello to you. I'm going to jump in when I need to and ask questions, and likewise you can do the same. So feel free to type questions in the chat and I will facilitate those as we go along. There you are, Mark. A warm welcome. Thanks for being online tonight. I didn't hear everything at the open day in Cape Town, so I'm glad there was too much going on, so I'm looking forward to taking some notes tonight, and just enhancing what we already teach at the school, and just upgrading that into a more robust practice, if I might say that.
Yeah, thank you, Cindy. Thanks for the introduction. Just a small correction. I'm not a Reiki master. And
Sorry.
that's okay. It's an interesting thing. I know some people love to pick up different modalities, and there's so much out there at the moment. I mean, at this stage, the industry, this sort of spiritual industry, is just like blossoming. It's like a fountain. There's just like a new modality every month, and you can really go quite crazy, like a kid in a candy store. You could run around and study one modality here, and the next month you can do another modality, and the next month another modality. But that wasn't my path. And Cindy will know quite well how I got into this work was basically by losing everything. I came out of the bottom of the barrel, which is quite a common symptom with what we're going to be talking about tonight. And I'll circle back to this. But when I started healing, I could barely afford to keep the lights on. I had almost lost my house, had lost my car, and we barely had enough money to like put food on the table. And so in the early stages of my career, there just wasn't money to do all these modalities. And so what I did is I dived deeply into intuitive energy healing. I had the tools and a small skill set, and I just explored. Um, I had lots of questions, and I asked them and found a way to get the answers. And one of the agreements I made with my guides was, okay, I'll share what you teach me, and that's part of the process. That's one of the reasons why we're here tonight. But I want to start with a little story. I don't know if see, there's quite a few South Africans here, so you guys will know what it's like when you go away and you stay in a certain place. So many years ago, we went on a whitewater rafting trip, and we stayed on the Breda River, and we stayed in these little cottages alongside the river. And maybe we should have read the fine print a little bit more closely. The brochure may have described these cottages as rustic, and that would have been maybe a bit complimentary, really. But these cottages were made out of like wooden slats, and it looked like they hadn't been maintained since they were built perhaps in the early 80s. Dust everywhere, but alongside the river and a bit of stagnant water as well. So there were just mosquitoes everywhere. We thought that we'd be carried away by the mosquitoes. And the typical evening was dinner down in the restaurant, and then after dark we'd sort of by torchlight make our way back to the cottage, and we'd have all the lights off, because if you didn't have the lights off, the place would just be filled with bugs. So you sneak into the cottage, close the door, then turn on the light. The beds had these mosquito nets, but the mosquito nets were so old and badly maintained that where there were holes in the mosquito nets, they either had a bit of duct tape covering the hole, or they had twisted the net and tied a little knot. But they clearly hadn't done a thorough enough job, because sneaking into this mosquito net on the bed, turn off the lights, and within seconds you'd just hear buzzing and you'd feel like mosquitoes around your face. And it's just one of those places. I don't know if you get places like this in the United Kingdom or in Europe, but maybe if you've traveled to Thailand or somewhere, there's like a place where there's humidity and insects. Now, a cottage like this, doesn't matter what you do, the mosquitoes will get in. And if it's not the mosquitoes, there's midges and there's spiders and there's everything. And we did everything we could to like keep ourselves secure. Keep the windows closed because there's holes in the fire screens. The doors didn't seal properly. And then you put mosquito repellent on your skin, and you read any tin of mosquito repellent, it's going to tell you it'll last for 8 hours. Now, I don't know about you, when I'm on holiday, I want to go to sleep at a certain time, and I want to like not wake up for like 10 hours. So at like 6 o'clock in the morning, you get woken up because your mosquito repellent has like stopped working. Now, some people's energy bodies are like this little shack next to the river. Okay. It's been around for a long time. Typically, in my practice, I see two types of people. We get the people whose energy body is like the shack next to the river. Okay. Normally, there's two sort of types of people who fall into this category then. We've got the old souls. The old souls have been on earth for thousands of years. We're talking about the people who've lived through the fall of Atlantis, the fall of Lemuria, and the fall of human consciousness down into the third dimension. Typically, these people have been very traumatized through their many, many lifetimes on this planet, through the denser layers of existence. And then the other people who fall into this category are the bright star seeds who were actually too bright and got traumatized. So now we're talking about the people who were burned at the stake, perhaps being in abusive marriages in previous lifetimes, arranged marriages, or some sort of trauma through the last. Star seeds I typically find have been on Earth for about 1,500 years. And some of them experienced a lot of trauma that caused a lot of damage in the energy field that's still there. But now this holiday that we went on, what we didn't see in the brochure was up on the hill was the 5-star accommodation. Now this was a house made of bricks and mortar with windows that close and a door that is sealed and no leaks and no bugs and no spiders and no mosquito nests inside. The people, I sometimes get people like this coming for healing. Now, it's not common because normally people who live in the house on the hill don't need a lot of energy healing. But occasionally I get some people, and I wonder why. So these are like recent star seeds come to Earth from advanced civilizations elsewhere in the universe, and they come here and they're bringing their light, and they're relatively trauma-free. Okay, relatively trauma-free. And then there's another category, and there's and I've actually had a handful of clients like this, and it turns out my wife was one of these who studied in a particular spiritual sect in around the 1700s, and they were called the Cathars, and the Cathars were called the perfect ones. And the Cathars was a sort of Christian sect that got exterminated when the Pope collaborated with the French and decided to take out anyone who was opposing the Catholic Church. But the Cathars knew a few things about energy because they sorted out any problems in their energy field. And eventually what happened to the Cathars is some of them were killed, burned, beheaded, or whatever, and then the final group got killed in their castle, and they made a final stand. They were all in a castle, and eventually they were just totally outnumbered, and the whole castle was burned to the ground. And that trauma is typically the only thing that's left in their energy field, the trauma from their final death in that lifetime. But what I found with the Cathars is their energy field is like amazing. So when I come across a client who is, their energy field is like the house on the hill, they've got great career, no money problems, great relationship, and no energetic problems, no problems with energetic protection. And this is quite useful as an energy healer because when you see enough people, you start to compare energy fields. And it's like, okay, well, why? And the question that I have, because I was born in the house, in the shack next to the swamp. Okay, so I've been dealing with these problems, and Cindy will know because how I got started with energy healing was actually because my energy field was so bad. I'd been studying spiritual material and doing like meditations, and I was doing a course in miracle stuff. And typically what happens when you start on your spiritual path is it's like turning on the lights. So if any of you guys have ever visited the shack next to the river on a holiday, and you're surrounded by insects or midges or mosquitoes, and it's nighttime, and you know what happens when you turn the lights on? Well, those guys just go to town. They just swarm in. And this is what happens to a lot of people when they start their spiritual journey. They wake up and they start meditating and they start reading spiritual material, and they turn the lights on, and then all of a sudden the energy field gets swarmed with negative energy. It's kind of like, it gets stuck around the outside, or sometimes it gets inside, and then they enter the dark night of the soul. Because there's two things that happen. You attract negative energy from the outside, but you also start pushing up stuff from the inside. Anything that is waiting to be healed starts rising to the surface and starts knocking on the door and saying, look at me. So I was born in this little shack down next to the swamp, and I was actually hosting a clairvoyance evening many, many years ago, and this was shortly after I met Cindy, and she was one of the clairvoyants on the panel, and the few clairvoyants, and they're giving messages to everybody, and I'd been the MC for the evening, and at the end of the evening, like, everybody goes through and was having a meal, and Cindy came up to me, by the way, you're under psychic attack, your aura is full of holes. And I just thought, wow. I just thought I was like run down. It had been a busy week. I'd been like organizing things and arranging like catering, and the whole hog. It had been like a hectic week. I just thought I was coming down with a cold. I had a scratchy throat. I was feeling a bit tired. And I was like, oh, okay. And then, I went home and I was like, okay, well, what do I do with this information now? Because this was back in the day when I had no money, so I couldn't afford an energy healer. And I didn't want to wait. I didn't want to wait like however many days to like see somebody. So I was just like, okay, well, I'm going to do this myself, and I'm going to figure it out. So I just started like breathing light through my energy field with intention to like close all the holes. And the next morning I felt better, and I was like, okay, I guess I can do this. But since then I've like always had this question, how and why? Like, if somebody like wants to do that to me, like, how can they do that? That's not right. And surely, like, back at that stage, I believed that, I was a good person, like only good existed in the unseen world, and God would protect me. My beliefs have changed. and maybe we'll get around to explaining how it all actually works. But I started like exploring this and asking questions, and that exploration continues to this day, because I still have clients who were born into the little shack down next to the swamp, and they come to me for help. And one of the key things, one of the key moments in this journey was shortly after I started working professionally as a healer. I had a client come to me who was under psychic attack, and they asked if I could help them, and I checked in with the guides, and the guide said yes, and I started helping this client. And after a few days, I felt like, oh, I'm run down again. My throat's getting a bit sore. Why am I so tired? And then the penny dropped, and I was like, oh, wait a second. I was clearing psychic attack 3 days ago, and now I'm feeling unwell. Maybe it's related. And sure enough, it was. And I entered into this deep initiation where this couple attacked me 3 times a day for about 3 months. And they were sending all sorts of nonsense energetically to me. And typically most psychic attacks, there's spells, thought forms, entities that get sent into towards your energy field. And this stuff was like getting in. It was getting into my aura. And I'm like, what the hell's going on here? Like, how do I stop this? Because, it's one thing clearing your energy field 3 times a day. Okay, that's okay. It's good practice for a period of time. You can do that for like a few days before It's not fun anymore. But eventually, like, you start asking the question, okay, well, how do I stop this from happening? How do I stop this from getting into my energy field? And over the period of weeks, I started getting some answers from my guides, and they started like teaching me a couple of things. Um, and I started putting together like a bit of a structure. And I'd always been inspired by the work of Dr. David Hawkins. I don't know if any of you guys have read any of his work. He developed the scale of consciousness that many of you have seen around. And this is like starting down at the bottom with shame, and then he measured it up to enlightenment, which was like, he measured that. He used muscle testing. And he was like a remarkable character. He was a student of A Course in Miracles. He was also a psychiatrist and a psychotherapist, and he had like a remarkable spiritual awakening. And he just like started measuring the stuff. So I just figured, well, if he can measure stuff, so can I. So with my work, what I do is I like create little yardsticks. I like measure stuff because it's useful to know if something's improving. And I see one or two people who've done some of my courses here before. Like I just share, okay, he has a yardstick that you can use, and you can measure things. And one of those things that I was taught was light body strength. So if something is getting into my energy field, maybe my energy field isn't strong enough. So that then leads to the next question. Well, how strong is my energy field? Which then leads to the next question. How strong should it be? Which then leads to the next question is, how do I strengthen my energy field? And that's actually pretty easy. That's the easy part. So over that period of time, I was given like 3 key measures. Let me just get my slides up here. Just give me a second. And the first one was light body strength. And I was told that my light body strength should be at 10,000. 10,000 watts, I do not know. It's just like a random measure. 10,000. And I asked what my light body strength was. It was about 7,000. Okay. And then through like a meditation and some intentional breath, I could raise my light body strength.
Sorry, and Mark, did you say you're putting the slide up? We can't see
yes.
it.
Yeah. I just had to open it. There we go.
Because you're talking in tongues a bit.
So there are these 3 key measures that I was given at that stage: the light body strength, the permeability of the energy field. And the permeability of your energy field is kind of how permeable it is. I mean, it's as simple as that, but it's like how spongy it is. Like if you think of a sponge, you dip a sponge in water and all the water goes into the sponge. And the permeability of your energy field is kind of like that. Like if you go out into the environment, how much of that energy is going into your energy field. And then the third thing that I was given at that stage was that I should seal my energy field. And I could measure the degree to which my energy field was sealed. So when I compare people who are born in the shack next to the swamp, and I compare their energy field to people who are born in the 5-star house up on the hill, what I find is people who are born in the swamp, their permeability tends to be about 30% or above. Whereas people who are born in the house up on the hill, their permeability is less than 10%. So what I did over a period of time is I reduced my permeability a little bit every day until it was 0. And at the time, if I reduced it too fast, it felt uncomfortable. But I reduced it a little bit every day until it got to 0. And now, every now and then, I still need to repeat this process. If I go through an energetic shift or something, which we'll talk about later, then I repeat it and I reduce my permeability down to 0. Light body strength yeah, people born in the shack down next to the swamp, the light body strength can be below 7,000. It can be below 1,000 in really bad cases where people have had a lot of trauma in their lifetimes. Their light body strength, their energy field is just like obliterated. Whereas people who are born in the house up on the hill, the light body strength tends to be at 8,000 or above. Okay. And then I had to seal my energy field. So this is like a different process. You don't just heal it. You can seal the energy field because energy is very malleable, and energy responds to your instructions. Those people born in the shack next to the swamp, their energy field isn't sealed much at all. It's definitely below 80%, whereas people who are born up in the house on the hill, it's 95% plus, close to 100% sealed. And then one of the things I measure is I just measure the damage in the energy field, in the aura, and in each layer, in each subtle body. How much damage is there in the etheric body, the emotional body, mental body, astral body, spiritual body? And then you can heal it, and then you can check again. And this is what I was doing back in those days. I was measuring each layer, how much damage is there, is my mental body sealed? Because a lot of psychic attack actually goes into the mental body, because it's like thought energy. And then of
Sorry,
course,
Mark,
yeah,
to interrupt. There's a good question here. Does the 10,000 not perhaps refer to Hawkins scale measure? I think that's on the light body strength.
yeah, it's a different measure to the Hawkins scale. Hawkins measured consciousness from 0 to 1,000. Yeah, so it's a different measure.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So when we look at the energy field, there's a whole sort of range of problems that exist in the energy field that are more prevalent in people who struggle with energetic protection. So I mentioned the damage. There's energetic wounds, there's energetic blockages, and then there's holes, leaks, cracks, tears in the energy field that all need to be closed and sealed. And all of the stuff is way more prevalent in people who've had a lot of trauma in this lifetime and past lifetimes. Okay. And sometimes, quite often, the people who've had a lot of trauma have actually been traumatized because they were doing great work. And this is the case with the people who were burned for witchcraft. This is the case with the Protestants who were killed for breaking away from the Catholic Church. This is the case with the Cathars, the Druids, all like indigenous cultures who had like a shamanic tradition or were connected to the earth, connected to spirits. You look around the world, they've been traumatized. And there's a reason for that, because they were a threat to people and entities who like the world in a low vibration. Okay.
Mark, there's another question. Can
Yeah,
you measure the chakras as well as the subtle bodies and their energy?
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And it's quite interesting. So, you know, one of I guess the solar plexus chakra is one that might come under attack if there's psychic attack, but one of the most traumatized chakras is the sacral chakra. And you could measure the sacral chakra compared to the crown chakra. I seldom find serious problems with the crown chakra, but the sacral chakra is almost always traumatized, just because, you know, it's relationships. And who hasn't had some relationship trauma in their life?
Yeah.
And
And the inner child.
the inner child and our parents when we're young. You know, we've all been traumatized by our traumatized parents to some extent. Yeah. So if you're interested in doing the exercise, you can use a pendulum or you can use muscle testing, and you can check that. So this I've got a meditation that's available free on my website, and a little video that'll take you through this permeability, light body strength, and sealed exercise. So this is a free meditation, and it's on this website here down below. ascensionroad.com. So go take a look. You'll find it there under free resources, and you'll be able to just go and do that meditation. And it's really, really pretty useful stuff. Yeah. Okay. So back to the little shack down next to the swamp. Turns out the shack isn't actually a shack. It's not anchored into the ground. It's actually a little caravan. And it's got wheels, but the wheels are just stuck in the mud. I don't know if any of you guys have watched George Clark's Amazing Spaces. He's this British architect who's got this little show, and they do all these refurbs on caravans and vans and buses and trucks and boats and all sorts of things. Anyway, you can think of your little caravan. If you're born into this little dilapidated caravan next to the swamp, well, you can refurbish it, because it doesn't need to stay there next to the swamp. We can actually move our energy field out of that dense vibration, out of that third dimensional frequency, and we can shift it and we can move it up the hill. Okay. Now, obviously, starting off with the permeability, the light body strength, and sealing the energy field is a useful starting point. Healing all the damage is an important thing. Closing all the holes, leaks, cracks, tears is an important step, because negative energy is typically attracted to the negative energy that's already resident within our energy fields. Okay. So if you're in this house, in this little caravan next to the swamp, if you've got rotting fruit in your caravan, you're going to attract flies, and there's no ways you're going to stop the flies. Okay. If you've got old food sitting in the rubbish bin that you haven't changed the rubbish bin in a week, you're going to attract flies to the rubbish bin, and you can put up every level of protection around your caravan. Those flies will find a way to get in. Even if it's just when you open the window or open the door to get out. Okay, so important. We do our healing. We clear the blockages throughout the energy field at every different part of the energy field. Now, there's a number of components of the energy field. I summarize them as follows. We've got our subtle bodies. We've got our chakras, secondary chakras, minor chakras. We've got our meridians, secondary meridians, minor meridians, or nadis. We've got our energy channels, like our divine channel, our chakra channel, and there are a few other channels, like the Kundalini channel. And then we've got our energy centers. So that's a bit obscure. There's other energy centers beyond the chakras that all need to be healed. But we start off with the basics. We start off with the aura, the subtle bodies, and the chakras. And we'll talk more about that in a second. So we start with the healing process, and that's the start of this process. The other thing here that I wrote, because I remembered it after I'd done the slides, SI and SG, structural integrity and sacred geometry. Sorry, Cindy, I know I'm getting a little bit complicated here, but how do I explain this? Each part of our energetic anatomy has its own sacred geometry that can be healed. It's as simple as that. We can do a little meditation to heal that, and the structural integrity is like the framework within a field of energy. So if you tuned into this in a meditation, and you ask to see the structural integrity of a field of energy, what you would see is almost like a crystalline grid or crystalline framework in that subtle body or in that chakra. And when you're healing a field of energy, when you're doing a bit more advanced healing, I'm not talking about starting point here. This isn't like for beginners. You've still got to just start at step one, which is you heal and clear, and then you do the next things. But then for those of you who are a little bit more advanced, you might want to just take a look at sacred geometry and structural integrity. And again, there's a meditation on that website that will be available shortly. Okay, so let's move on. So then the question comes, how do we, let me stop the share before we get ahead of ourselves. How do we get away from the swamp? If your caravan is next to the swamp, like, where do you go? And inspired by Dr. Hawkins's work and noticing a pattern with myself and my clients, whenever there was an energetic surge, there would be like some sort of shift. You guys might have noticed that. You probably have noticed that. There's a planetary alignment, there's solar flares, maybe there's a full moon or something, and the energy feels great, and you do like a meditation or something, and the energy is all feeling amazing, and then boom, you feel flat. And, this happens often enough, and then you got to like ask, okay, well, what's actually going on here? And it's like changing gears in a car. If you don't drive, or even if you drive an automatic, you push the accelerator, the revs go up, and the power and the torque goes up, and then the car changes gears, or you change gears, and the revs drop down, and the torque drops down, and it's like, So this is kind of one of the things that happens with our energy. We build up energy through our spiritual practice, through our meditations, through our breath work, through energetic activations. And then we go through a shift. And when we go through these shifts, there's two primary things that happens. The energy field and the components of the energy field expand outwards. So you might find that there's a new layer or a new component that becomes activated, that typically needs some help with this activation. And then the other thing that happens is the energy field's moving upwards. Because as you clear a blockage, the frequency rises. So there's two ways to raise the frequency of a field of energy. You clear something of a low frequency. So let's just talk about the sacral chakra. You can clear an emotional wound from the sacral chakra, and by removing a low frequency thing from that field of energy, that frequency will rise. Okay. And the other way to raise the frequency of a field of energy is to draw in high frequency energy. So you do an activation, you breathe in divine light, and you channel it into that field of energy, and that will raise the frequency of that field of energy. Now, you do this to your entire energy field, all the components of your energetic anatomy individually and collectively. Your entire energy field is slowly moving upwards if you're on the spiritual path and you're doing some intentional work on your energy field. Now, what I found was every now and then we would then change gears. And again, working with my guides, I was given like this model where we had all these layers, these frequency bands, 7,000 layers and like a major frequency band, and then there were 49,000 layers from the fourth dimension up to the fifth dimension. And when you went through one of the major frequency bands, people would typically change gears, and sometimes they'd be like feeling flat, or they would get sick or a cold because the energy field was then vulnerable. Because moving through a frequency band seems to shake up the energy a little bit. And then this is a useful model, and it's useful with clients, because if I know roughly where my clients are, I know when they're going to hit a big shift. And I don't want them to hit a big shift the day after a healing session. If they're close, I want them to go through that frequency band in the healing session, so that they don't like get sick the day after a healing session and think that I did something wrong, or like then they've got to wait for another week for an appointment, or whatever the case might be. So it's a useful little tool, but it's been kind of superseded by something else. A little seed was sitting in my mind for a long period of time. And then I read, let's see if this book's here, because I'm forgetting the name. Yeah, Of Water and Spirit, Malidoma Soma. I don't know if any of you guys have read this book. This guy is an African shaman of highest order. This book will blow your mind, the type of training these guys go through. It'll blow your mind. Anyway, it was a reminder of a lot of what's spoken about in shamanic traditions is the upper world, the middle world, and the lower world. And you guys have probably heard about this in different phrases, or the underworld and the upper world and the middle world. And I kept like getting this information coming through that I needed to work with this a little bit more deeply. Because the dilapidated caravan is in the lower world. Okay, the house on the hill, well, for now, that's in the middle world. Okay, so if we look at this, I guess we can call it a map of non-ordinary reality. Now, a map is useful because if you know where you are and you know where you're going, you can then chart a course to get where you're going. Now, the swamp is down here in the lower world. And what I found was the lower world and the upper world each have 7 layers. The middle world is just 1 layer. Okay. Most of humanity is in the lower world. Okay. But people who are in the dilapidated caravan next to the swamp are in lower world 7. So if we count down from the middle world, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, we count down. Lower world 7 is where you're going to find the reptilians and the draconians and the poltergeists and the demons and every other type of entity that you can imagine that are too many to number and to name. Okay. Like at the bottom of the lower world. Okay. People who are in the house up on the hill, their energy field is typically in lower world 1 or in the middle world. And there are very few entities in the middle world and above. There are some, okay? But most of the entities are down at the bottom of the lower world. Now, this is pretty useful because what I started doing with my clients is taking them out of the lower world and getting their energy to the middle world. And all of a sudden, we're not like plagued by demons and reptilians and poltergeists anymore. And it turns out it's a fairly easy process. You got to clear the blockages and you got to like heal the wounds and you got to close all the holes, leaks, cracks, tears, etc., etc., etc. But you do sufficient healing, you just start to move the energy upwards. And I guess there's like energetic gates to move between the layers, but these gates are really just a set of prerequisites. If you meet the set of prerequisites, your energy will shift upwards. You've got to meet the requirements of the new layer that you want to move into. And as you move upwards, the filter becomes finer. Like, so moving up through the lower world, you might need to clear big emotional blockages and all the entities that I've mentioned. But then as you start moving through the higher layers, you've got to remove like finer emotional blockages, limiting beliefs and minuscule blockages and smaller things. So it's like the filter gets finer and finer as you move upwards. But you can fairly easily and in a fairly short space of time, you could actually get your energy field into that middle world where you're largely safe from the worst of the entities. Maybe I won't say the worst of the entities. The most common of the entities that plague the common man, the average Joe. And I'm sort of explaining it like this because if you are doing serious spiritual work and doing a lot of energetic activations, or you do some spirit release work like I do, you might come across some bigger entities from time to time that do reside in the higher planes. That's all part of the process and part of the training and the initiation. Okay. So how do we move upwards through those layers? Okay, let's give you the big picture first. So this, what I'm describing here at the moment, let me see if I've got that on. No. Okay. So this forms part of what can be called the dark reality. Okay. Once you move beyond the upper world, you can get to the light reality, and beyond the light reality is the demiurge, the promised land, and then the seven heavens. And you might have seen like images like this from time to time on the internet. And this is kind of like a energetic map to this firmament, or a sort of like energetic world that we live in. Okay. But we don't need to worry about all of that for now. We really just need to worry about, at this stage of the game, in any case, moving up through the lower world and at least getting to the middle world. Now, the collective consciousness of humanity has shifted over the past few months from lower world 7 to the middle world. So it's happening collectively and individually. We're getting a lot of support to do this work. Gaia, so Mother Earth, has shifted up into the light reality over the last few months. Okay, so there is a collective shift that's taking place. So now if we look at just a few key steps on how we move up the mountain, we clear all the blockages, the negative energy that's sitting in the energy field, and we do so repeatedly at a finer and finer level of cleansing. Okay, we heal all the wounds, and we close all the holes, leaks, cracks, tears, etc., in the energy field. And then we do some activations. We activate the aura, the chakras, and as we activate, the energy field grows bigger and stronger, and it rises up as we're bringing in more high-frequency energy into the energy field. Then we're going to talk about the assemblage points and soul embodiments in a second. And then that point there is just about healing all the components of the energetic anatomy. Okay, so what's happening is, as our energy bodies expand and our energy centers expand, our chakras expand, we go from and I spoke about this in the last masterclass, the chakras expand into a chakra center and into a chakra field, and beyond that, a chakra body. And each of these is taking on layers as we bring light into our energy field. Our energy field is blossoming. Likewise, our aura expands. You know, we might start off just working on the lower 4 or 5 layers, but then you want to heal further outwards in the energy body. As those layers become activated, you kind of need to just do a little bit of healing on them, and perhaps a little bit of clearing. And then as your energy field rises upwards through the frequency bands, you might find more stuff surfacing. So typically what I find is I find myself going back further in time. So we start off clearing what's the traumas from our current lifetime, and then we land up going back, and you might go through a shift, and you might find yourself having to heal stuff from a few lifetimes ago, and then perhaps 1,000 years ago. And then if you're an old soul and you've been on Earth for a long time, you might go back and heal some traumas from the fall of Atlantis, and then you might go back and heal some traumas from the fall of Lemuria. And this was quite interesting because, you know, like one of the key moments when this started falling into place for me within my consciousness, I was teaching one of the school courses, and on that particular day, there were two of us teaching, and I can't remember. Cindy, what day do we teach that lighthouse meditation? Is it in module 3 or something on the healing course?
Something like that, Mark.
Something
Sorry,
like
I
that.
can't. Yeah.
It's like day 6 or day 7, and we
Yeah. I think
on the
it's day
2-year
7. I
healing.
think, yeah, it's module 3. First day of module 3.
Yeah. So I was teaching this like quite a few years ago with the school, and on the day it was a big group, and we had two teachers, and the other teacher was guiding the meditation, and I was sitting there in the meditation, and you know, I'd been an energy healer for some time now. I'd been healing like all my chakras. I thought, no, my energy is good. Go into the meditation. Oh, this is nice. Oh, beautiful base chakra. That's looking good. Sacral chakra. Yeah, good. We went up to the solar plexus chakra, and in the meditation, it's a great meditation. If you've done it, you'll know. You go into and you step into the room of the solar plexus chakra, and the whole side of my solar plexus chakra, this lighthouse, was just blown apart, and there's like nothing there. And I'm like, what the hell is going on here? And then like a few pennies dropped because at the time I was starting to get the information about those frequency bands, and I was starting to recognize those shifts. And then I got into the solar plexus chakra, and I was like, oh, okay. And like all the pennies then fell into place and fell into line. I was like, okay, so that's the frequency band, and I've moved into a new frequency band. And this wound actually wasn't there like a few weeks ago because I'd healed my solar plexus chakra. It wasn't there a few weeks ago. I couldn't see it. I couldn't find it. I couldn't feel it. And now that I'd been through an energetic shift, he has this big gaping wound, and there it was. And we've got to be mindful that this is happening. You know, you go through a frequency shift. You might come across a wound that wasn't there before, and you might think your energy is all good, but you've moved into a new layer, and there could be stuff there that needs to be cleared. And this is like how we like spiral upwards, and we come back to the same stuff because, you know, typically the traumas that we're having in our current lifetime, quite often they're mirroring traumas from a previous lifetime. And I can't tell you how often I come across this with my clients. If there's been a particular trauma in a previous lifetime, there's something in this lifetime that is very similar to that, because our energy fields are magnets. Our energy fields are magnets for the type and frequency of energy that they hold. They're drawing experiences into your life. Okay, so if you've got a particular trauma, and this happens like it's most obvious with sexual traumas, where people have had a past life sexual trauma, in this lifetime there's something. It might not be as severe, it might not be as serious, but there's something, because your energy field is a magnet for energy like itself. But this is designed so that you can heal. Because if you're not aware of what happened in a previous lifetime, and it happens in this lifetime, you can heal it in this lifetime. Okay, so this is a good thing if you know about it. Okay, so you know it's happening. It's a good thing. It's going to help you to heal faster. But if you don't know about it, you're going to be replicating traumas lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, and they're going to become compound traumas that become more severe, and then the body starts to like really play up, because then the body is going to be unsupported in that place where that trauma lies. Okay, so we do all this healing, and then I've got the point here about the assemblage point. Now, the assemblage point is one of the most important of the unknown energy centers. Okay, so the assemblage point is in the middle of the chest. If everything's aligned, it will come through your heart center. But the assemblage point is where your soul connects to your body. Okay, and bringing about this healing to the assemblage point brings about full soul embodiment. So typically when we're starting out on this journey, you might imagine and visualize and see and find that your soul is actually sitting above you. Okay, now you're connected to your soul via your divine channel, and your divine channel will go through your soul and upwards up to source energy. And that's great. But as we move towards soul embodiment, we bring ourselves into the energy of our soul. So the soul surrounds us and it permeates every layer of our being. And this brings through our soul energy. It brings us into the river of life. Our soul's path for our life starts to flow through us, through our energy body, through our energy, our entire energetic anatomy, and through our heart center. It provides a great level of protection for the energy field, and it starts to open doors. When we have full soul embodiment, we find ourselves on our path quite easily. Okay, we shift away from the wrong path and we get onto the right path, and then doors open. Okay, and I do this normally pretty early on with my clients, and maybe session 2 or session 3 if I can, because people come to healing and they want to have a shift, and we can do this fairly early on if they're looking for that shift, if they're looking to change their life or some aspect of their life. Perhaps they want to shift their career, or get better energy protection, or they're feeling a little bit lost. They're lost because the soul is not embodied. Now, when it comes to soul embodiment, it's actually a pretty sad state of affairs, because people who are in the dilapidated caravan next to the swamp, their soul embodiment is like 1% or below. And people who are in the 5-star house up on the hill, their soul embodiment may be up towards 100%. And if they were Cathars in a previous lifetime, they might find their soul embodiment up to 100%. But mostly it's around 10%, 8 or 10%. So most people would benefit from this type of healing, and they can experience a fairly profound shift. Yeah. So it's a potent thing, and if you've got clients, you can really shift things quite considerably for them. So that's the workshop that's coming up, not on Saturday week. I think it's the 26th of October. And we're going to go into this. We're going to do this as an experiential workshop, align with the energy of your soul path, feel the protection of your soul. We're going to do some healing to the soul, because you actually, you don't want to, sorry guys, I'm looking at the slide here. I didn't share it. Let me just go back to, I lost everybody. I lost the Zoom. Let's get back here. Share. There we go. Okay. This is what I'm talking about. Okay. Align with the energy of your soul path, feel the protection of your soul, because, and we're going to do some simple soul healing tools. There's a little bit of healing that you can do for the soul that is actually simple and profound and pretty quick and easy to do, because you don't want to bring about full soul embodiment with a soul that is still very traumatized. Okay, so there's a certain level of healing that we should do before bringing about soul embodiment. So we're going to look at some of those simple healing tools. We're not doing a full soul retrieval, which is an entire process on its own, but we're going to do some other healing to the soul. And we're going to learn about the different types of energetic prisons which inhibit the energy of the soul. Typically find that most people's souls are about 10% inhibited. You know, they're not fully functioning, they're not fully expanded. And we're going to look at, I don't think I wrote this on the slide, but there's 4 key components of the assemblage infrastructure. So when we're looking at the assemblage point, there's like 4 key things that we've got to look at. Yeah. To bring about a soul embodiment that then isn't lost. Okay. So there's like these 4 key components, and each of these 4 things has kind of something quite typical that's there that needs to be removed. Yeah. So yeah, some important work that will be really beneficial for your clients and, you know, for yourself if you're interested. Okay. So as you can imagine, this whole process of moving up the mountain might take a little bit longer than, it's not an overnight process. Let's just put it that way. If you get out of the lower world, you'll be free of most of the common entities that trouble people. There are still some entities in the middle world and the upper world. when you get beyond the way I understand it, okay, so yeah, there's still some Anunnaki and dark entities here in the upper world, and in the light reality, there's one or two other entities up until you reach the first of the seven heavens. But you free yourself from the cycle of reincarnation when you free yourself and you move beyond the demiurge. So this is what my guides tell me. If you want to free yourself from the cycle of reincarnation, you've got to get your energy at least to what I'm calling the promised land. Okay. So until you get there, it is still beneficial to have a certain level of protection. So I want to share some of my favorite tips. I know we're coming up to the hour here. My favorite tips for protection, things that can really take your protection to the next level. Okay. Firstly, when you're creating your protection, create it at 3 layers or 3 methods of creation. Let's call it that. You imagine it, and I use the word imagine rather than visualize because not everybody imagines visually. Okay. So some of you imagine without visualization, and there's a large percentage of the population that can't visualize at all. So imagine the protection. You intend to have protection and to be protected, and you invoke. What I mean by invoke is you speak it into being. Okay, so you're creating your protection threefold. Imagine, intend, invoke. And invoke, you speak it into being. So if you're surrounding yourself with a bubble of light, you say in your mind, I am surrounded by a bubble of protective light. And at the same time, you're intending that and you're imagining that. Okay, so you're creating it like in 3 ways of creation, 3 methods of creation. Then describe the characteristics of the energy that you want. So it doesn't matter what form of protection you're doing. If you are doing a bubble of light, a pyramid of light, a suit of armor, a cloak of protection, whatever your favorite method of protection is, describe the characteristics of the energy. Because what you are effectively doing is you're using your mental power to create form in the non-physical world, and you're creating a form that surrounds your energy to keep you protected. Now, the more powerfully you do this, the longer that this energy protection will last. Okay, so energy is very malleable to our intention, and it is very easy to work with if we're aligned and attuned with source energy. So describe the characteristics of the energy that you want. Do you want it to be invincible? That's one that I like to use. I create an invincible bubble of light around my energy field. And the other thing that I like to use is I describe some of the other characteristics. You might describe it as crystalline, or you might describe it as diamond, or carbon fiber, or something strong. Describe it as like a strong, invincible type of energy. Repeat the process. So, when you are creating your protection, repeat it a few times. So imagine, intend, invoke 3 times. Say those words 3 times. I'm surrounded by a bubble of invincible crystalline energy. And repeat the same protection every time you do protection. Okay, so don't do a suit of armor one day and a bubble of light the next day and a pyramid the next day. Build on what you've created. Okay, so every night I go to bed, I surround my home with crystalline protection, and it's the same as the walls. And every night I do the same thing, and I've done this for over 8 years now. It's a pretty strong field of protection. It is stronger than if I did something different every night. All right. Get help if you know how. Okay. So if you know how to work with beings of light safely and make sure they're not imposters, or fake guides, you can ask your guide or you can ask Archangel Michael to help you with that protection. And they have a greater ability to create that energetic protection than you do at this point in time. So if you know how to work with beings of light, call on them and ask them to help you with the protection. Something that is often overlooked, that is one of the most useful tools for energetic protection, is to actually close your energy field. If you're going into a shopping center, if you've finished your energy work for the day, if you finished your meditation, pull in your aura, pull in your chakras, and make your energy field small. Okay, no point going out into the world with this big giant energy field, and you know, you don't need to make this mistake too often to learn the lesson. I once went to shopping rushed out after finishing a healing session. I had to go fetch my daughter from school, and I had to go and pick up some groceries, and I went into like a shopping center without closing down properly, and I had to spend an hour clearing my energy that evening. Okay, so close your energy field. Heal and restore your heart field. One of the most powerful protective fields. Your heart field, when it's healthy and strong, is a very protective field of energy that'll keep your energy protected without the need for further protection. You know, if your heart field is strong and healthy, that'll keep you largely safe. And an inner smile. Have a smile in your heart. It keeps your vibration up. It keeps your energy strong. As soon as we drop into a low emotional state, we find our energy field weakens. So the most important thing to remember is the best protection is a healthy energy body. And this refers to your emotional state, your mental state, your spiritual state, and your energetic state. Okay. And, you know, if you're on this path, you're probably working on many of those layers. But we need to continue working on all of those layers. And just remember, it's a journey. It's not like a switch that we click. It's a journey, and we keep working on all of these levels and healing all of these levels. Yeah, let's go to some questions.
Yeah, there are some questions, Mark. So we had, can you explain how the links to the light bodies strengthen or permeability? Does that mean it also gets stronger by default?
Okay.
And then underneath that it says, I guess your higher self cannot ascend unless all of your representations are healed as well.
Okay, so let's start with Claudia's question. I'm not sure if I quite understand it, how that links the light body strength or permeability. I'm not sure what she's referring to there. Claudia, can you maybe clarify?
So the next question, is the workshop online? Yes, it is.
Yes, it is online. Okay, so your higher self cannot ascend. And okay, what we're talking about here is an energetic ascension. So my belief is we're living in a time where we are taking our entire energy bodies upwards. In the past, we shifted our consciousness upwards. Okay, so we've had like gurus, especially if you think about the saints in India who have reached amazing states of enlightenment, where their consciousness has been up in the seven heavens, but they haven't necessarily shifted their energy bodies. Okay, so my belief is that at this point in our history, we're shifting our entire energy bodies upwards. So you can shift your consciousness without your energy body, but then your energy body is still going to be struggling and stuck in this frequency prison of planet Earth.
Mark, I have a question around that.
Yes.
Are we not embodying that energy? So rather than, we're not actually going up, we're just bringing that vibration is happening here. So rather than the ascension, it's actually the integration within this. We're not going to go anywhere. It's just going to come to us.
Kind of. Collectively. So planet Earth is shifting, so is moving through the frequency bands,
Yeah.
moving upwards through that uh, from the lower world up into the light reality. We as a collective, individually and collectively, our energy is moving through those frequency bands. But we on our planet, we're doing it as a whole. So
So the
look
oneness
up.
is coming to us.
Yes, but we've still got to do the work. It's not going to happen
Like,
without our work.
yeah, so we're bringing it, we're calling it in, right?
Yeah.
We're calling it into the oneness now. It's just, there was that time because I think for me to go back to the simple form of the 101 where we learn to read and not write on the healing course and in energy management at the school, which is, for some of you who aren't proficient in the basics of energy management. It's like you can't read a book unless you've learned to read and write. So we at the school, some of the work that we're doing is still the ABCs. But one of the things that, and I'm curious to hear your point of view, is that, we're not actually going to the upper world. The upper world is going to be in oneness with us here, because this going up tends to be ungrounded within the earth plane, and we're feeling that shift. It's very clear here. It's here.
Yes, it's but it's
The upper world is not
because
necessarily above us.
yes,
Mark and
that's
I
a better way of putting it. That's a better way
Yes,
of putting it.
Mark and
Yeah,
I like to do this with each other, and hopefully we're not disagreeing. We're just trying to
yeah.
understand each other.
Just trying to understand.
Yeah. So
Because
the upper world is not up. We're not going up. What we're doing is the upper world is just because as humans that defines that it's up, but actually it's the heightened vibration.
yeah,
It's the vibration that is on the earth plane as opposed to being outside of that. It's
yeah,
here. For me, the understanding and the way I see it is that we're not going there, it's coming here. But it's a higher vibration. The middle world, the upper world, and the underworld are all our realities here.
yes. And because Earth is moving upwards, when we're grounding into a higher frequency.
So Earth's increased its, but it's not going up. The frequency is higher.
Yes.
Earth hasn't gone anywhere.
Earth hasn't gone anywhere. It's raised
But
its frequency.
the raising
Yeah,
of the
yeah,
frequency is there. Sorry, because I don't want this up there business. Sorry, because we did a lot of that up there ascension
yeah,
stuff of us going there and going up together. We're accessing the oneness here. That's how I see the shift at the moment.
mm, yeah. So
To
so
explain
those,
it linearly, it's easier to go up, down, and middle.
but it's a model rather than a reality. So the map is
Yes.
not the territory.
Yeah.
But the map is there to try and help us understand the territory.
Yeah. But I love
And
that the
also,
vibration of the earth is rising because because as beings we're starting to have a faster energy.
yeah, yeah,
So as a result, we're getting to understand faster energies, and therefore it's attracting more dense energies that we need to make sure that we are robust within our grounding, in our upgrade.
yeah. And the model is useful because we can identify quite easily where we are. We can use it as a tool to identify where we are and what we need to work on to um, have a better experience.
Mm.
of life on Earth. So it's online. So Claudia is referring to those sections. Your light body strength may increase somewhat by moving, if you are shifting upwards, but there's still some work. Like, you will find that if you are increasing your light body strength, you're actually bringing energy into your energy body, that is going to help you on this process, through this process. It's going to make your energy feel stronger.
There's another great question mark. What is the difference between consciousness and energy body?
Okay, so I think this might also be one of those things that is quite difficult to understand and perhaps even harder to explain. But the way I understand it is, consciousness is more about understanding information. Consciousness is more about information that exists within the energy. So we have a field of consciousness that is ours, that is also linked to the collective consciousness, out in the collective. Our field of consciousness resides within our energetic anatomy. It permeates all the layers of our energetic anatomy. And that's, if we can describe some of that consciousness as our own versus consciousness that belongs to the collective. But it would be the information within the energy, would be my current best understanding. There's another question here from Carolina. Let me just read this. Yes, that seems good. Okay.
Mark, the energy body is individual and collective, but the consciousness is the bringing together of that
I
for
would
me.
say our energy body is individual.
Yes.
Um,
And that has a consciousness, right?
there's a
It is
consciousness.
conscious.
Yes. We have consciousness within our energy bodies.
Yeah. And
That
that
is,
then collectively, and with the collective consciousness blends together, but it's within the energy body. It's such a good question.
yeah. And it's also like a dichotomy where two opposite things are true at the same time, because our consciousness exists within the field of collective consciousness.
Mm.
And we can perceive the collective consciousness, and we can tap into that. And I think most of the people on this group have done that.
Yeah.
Like you just sort of like open up your energy a little bit, and you're feeling what's in the collective. You just watch the news, and you see what's happening in the Middle East, and immediately you're like feeling that energy, and you're like, you're feeling the heightened anxiety and the fear and all the emotions of that. You watch a rugby game, you're tapping into the collective consciousness of the rugby stadium. But we don't always want to be tapping into the collective. We want to kind of like be, sometimes we just want to be in our own energy, and that's fine.
Mark, I think we need to start some conversations because around the new earth and bring people on, because I think there's such a good inquiry going on with everyone inquiring as to how we're shifting and what's going on. I think it's exciting times. So, but guys, always default back to 101, grounding, protection, etc. And then we start the exploration, or those of you who have been affected. I just want to say, for those of you who aren't affected, keep it that way. because there are people who are able to hold that for various reasons, who have the house, who aren't affected. And I think that's really curious. Mark, thank you so much. Do you want to just show
My
the
pleasure.
details of the slide? Did you do that with the workshop? Or should I
Yeah,
pop the
so
link in there?
the workshop is there now.
Okay.
There's the early bird special up until I think that's Sunday or Friday.
I,
Early
I, I
bird
I don't know.
expires Sunday, and I think that is 2,900 Rand. And then after Sunday, it goes up a bit.
So I will send it out with the recording, what that is. So if those of you who are interested, please do that. Anything else before we
Yeah, and
finish
that'll
off?
be like an experiential process. We're going to do it as a group. There's the link. And you'll have the experience of working through the assemblage points and the four components of the assemblage points. Yeah,
Good.
good.
Everybody, I think, are we done, Mark?
We're
Are you
done.
good? We're good. Okay,
Yeah.
everybody, lovely to see you. Please remember Monday meditation, 12 o'clock British Standard Time, 1 o'clock South African time for this month, and then the clocks move. And then we've got really coming back to the basics of this. We've got a scientist explaining energy management next Thursday. We also have, for those of you not necessarily on the course, we have an energy management course coming up. We also have a foundation in psychic development. And if there are people there who have not done the healing course and are on the school, please do the healing course and then you go to Mark. Just saying. Anyway, lovely to see you all, and I'm laughing because all the people on the healing course are laughing. It's been lovely, Mark. Thank you. I love this exploratory work that you do and have done. If anyone is suffering, Mark's private practice is a busy one, but he really has made this his life's work. Who you're gonna call? You're gonna call Mark. Not Cindy, you're going to call Mark. Just say. But thank you everyone for being here. Great talk, Mark. Lovely to see the community. And we'll see you all very soon. Take care. Good night.
Bye.